Well, hello! I'd like to welcome you to another exciting episode of Pens in Use. This week it is Thanksgiving break, so I had yesterday off, spent time with some friends, and today I just have off from school, so I've been doing a lot of little jobs indoors and outdoors around the house. But I thought I'd take a break and film Pens in Use because it's Friday. So let's take a look at the pens I'm using this week. If videos like this interest you, where I talk about fountain pens both new and old and at all price points, I would invite you to subscribe. And if you'd like to comment on any of these pens, or particularly the glass nib pen, or perhaps my Stipula experiment toward the end, please feel free to leave a comment down below. So let's take a look at them. Alright, so first, from the 1930s, I have a Welsharp. Then this is the exotic glass nib pen. I have a Columbus 65. A vintage Aurora 88, a modern Aurora 88, Visconti Homo Sapiens, Omas Ogiva, Kaco Edge, and finally the problem child, the Stipula Etruria Prisma 88 with T-Flex. I'll just point out that I did a series of videos, I think 2, on my Instagram. The second of them is going to come out today. I filmed it last week, where I did the great Italian pens of my collection. So that's why there seems to be an Italian overload in the collection this week, because they're not empty yet. So we'll go with those. So let's take a look at how these write. As always, I'll be writing in my Homo art journal from Hungary. So let's take a look at them. Alright, so for my first pen, I have a Welsharp. This is a 1930s pen. It's a bit on the small side. Nothing fancy, the finials, lever fill pen. I think it's a very attractive finish. Probably celluloid, especially that line there is making me think celluloid. I don't know that for a fact. I know almost nothing about Welsharp. But I do know it's a Welsharp. I believe this is a US company. And what makes this pen a bit unique, because you know me, I like my slim black pens. What makes this pen a bit unique is the nib. This is a glass nib pen. Now there were times, especially during the Second World War, where glass nibs were used, partly so metal could be spared for the war effort. I don't know enough history of this pen to know if that's the case, but it's interesting nonetheless. One thing I have not liked with this pen is when you first, let's see if I can focus this. When you first start writing with it, it is super wet. Then as you write along, it calms down, the whole flow thing. So I'm going to just clean that wetness off a bit there, because that's, I would say, too wet to be usable. Someone last week suggested that I use a binder clip to hold down this other page. I have one. I just forgot to bring it down here with me, and I started filming this and didn't think of it, so I've got a weight on it. I don't know a model for this pen. It was sold as a model pink and black to me, so who knows. I'm nowhere near reviewing this pen, so it's just going to appear in Pens in Use by Herbin, Poussiére, de Lune, Moon Dust. And, you know, it's a glass nib pen. It's a little scratchy. Sorry, but that's been my experience with glass nib pens. I don't particularly enjoy writing with them. I have one that I use. Haven't really done much ink sampling lately, and, you know, keeping up my whole little cards of inks. But that's what I would always use it for. I would write with it, and then I would turn on its side to do like a swatch. But that was a dip pen, which actually I should do a review on that too. But anyway, that's my Welsharp. As part of my Great Italians, in fact, this one is going to come out on IGTV today. I have my Columbus 65. This is a take on the, I would say it's a take on the Aurora 88. Columbus is no longer with us, but it is an Italian brand, piston fill pen. Nice little finial there. This is Columbus. Well, I've got the link to the review down below, but Columbus Laminato Oro 750. Segmented ink window. And I always thought of this nib as very flexible, and it is, but I thought it was wetter. I don't know if it's the ink or just I had the wrong impression of the pen before. The ink, which you'll see a little bit more today, is Diamine Autumn Oak. You know, a nice enough color in this pen, but it looks far better in some of my other pens that I've used it in. And we're going to see some more experimentation with that ink today. It's a Italian Brethren, a vintage Aurora 88, which I love. This is a vintage pen I highly recommend. Conveniently enough, the ink is Diamine Aurora. I should just point out semi-hooded nib, which allows it more flexibility than a Parker 51, which it was created to compete with. Very nice. It's a reddish ink window. It's easier to see it now because I've written it down a bit, and you can see it's a little cooler in the basement because of my condensation on the barrel. And I have found a chart that talks about these finials and what nib they represent, but I don't know if it's official yet. The source I got it from didn't give an original source, so I'm not going to comment too much on it yet, but apparently this did mean something. Of course, last Christmas I couldn't help myself. I purchased a modern Aurora 88. And I wanted a flex nib. And say all you want, modern flex isn't vintage flex, I know, but I like it. So isn't that all that matters? This is Pelikan. I didn't really give you a look at the pen, did I? We'll come back and give you a look at the pen. Pelikan, Edelstein, Olivine. I actually did a video. Has it been a year yet? Well, it has to have been less than a year because I've only owned this pen for a year. But I did a video where I compared this to its vintage cousin, so I'll put a link to that in the video description. If I've reviewed a pen, I always try to put its link in the video description where I list the pens and inks. So again, condensation because cold basement, warm hands. The pen was in the basement long enough to pick up the temperature of the basement, I guess. The regular nibs are a bit more ornate than this, but it's one of their flex nibs. And I think it does a nice job. Now, I bought this pen a number of years ago. I've heard that Visconti, they're a bit unreliable. You can't trust their nibs. They have to be fixed and so on. You know, I have one point of comparison. I'm holding it, so I can't comment on that. I had a good experience with this pen. I like this pen. It has its issues. This is not a pen that'll travel because I don't trust it to hold the ink in. I've ended up with a cap full of ink to my surprise when I've traveled with it, so it stays home. But I enjoy writing with it. I did lose the original finial because the My Pen system just quit working. I suppose I could have sent it off to Visconti and had it repaired, but instead I super glued a tiger's eye in it, and I think it looks well enough. I like the attention to detail and the design. I mean, it's a beautiful pen, and it's apparently made from a resin that contains volcanic rock from Mount Etna. And I, of course, got the Bronze Age because I liked that a lot. and I like that it tarnishes. And the pen, oops, forgot the I. And the pen just feels good to write with. It writes, oops, you didn't see any of that, I apologize. The pen writes really well. It's definitely a very wet line, which may be a problem. It's not a flex nib, but definitely has some flexibility. I've been getting into Callifolio inks lately. They're made with a lot of more natural products, and they are apparently vintage friendly. Has been my main interest in them. Get a little color variety, but that's vintage friendly. Sadly, Omas is no longer with us. I purchased this back when I think Omas had just closed its doors. The prices on these really hadn't done anything wild, so I purchased one because I figured, well, this is my last chance to own an Omas. I saw one recently for sale. It wasn't this color, and it wasn't even the extra flexibile nib. It was just the regular Omas nib, but it was more than double what I paid for this. So I'm happy that I got it when I did. I think it's an attractive pen. Different sort of design. Extra flexibile, and mine is a medium. And they used to make their own ebonite feeds. I don't know what the story is with Omas now, where they're headed, if somebody's bought them. You are going to really question my sanity when I tell you what ink this is. Or you're going to question my cleanliness. I am questioning my cleanliness. That ink looks very green to me. I don't know how it's picking up on the camera, but sure looks green to me. And I'll tell you what the ink is in it. Omas gray. So that tells me the last time I cleaned this pen out, I definitely should have done a better job. Now, what ink was in it, I keep forgetting to look. And the book where I'd have that written down is upstairs, so I won't worry about it. But clearly did not do a good job cleaning. I did a first impression. I filmed it, I think, 2 weeks ago, but released my first impression of the Kaco Edge this week. By funny chance, today it became, Wednesday it became, replaced my Lamy 2000 because the Lamy 2000 ran out of ink, so I went to refill it, and my supply of Lamy Black is gone, so I had no ink at school to refill it with, but luckily this pen was with me, so I slipped this one in my pocket. And it's okay. I'm finding, especially with this cold basement, I'm finding that this is metal down at the bottom because I can feel it's much colder than the barrel, but it's been starting to heat up in my hand. So this is a Kaco Edge Extra Fine. Mine, if you saw the first impression, I just put a Kaco Black cartridge in it. And on that note, I had a question from a viewer, which I have not answered yet, because I'm going to answer it live right now. They asked about cartridges and converters. Now, I told them, or what I said in the video is, oh, why didn't they include a cartridge? Or, a converter. And I had a few people comment and say, well, you should just order from suppliers that provide converters, which I did. I ordered from Bobby, and I'm told, and it said cartridge included. Now, it was not in the box. I didn't see it when I unwrapped the pen, but that doesn't mean it wasn't there. I honestly would have been looking for the cartridge in the box rather than in the wrapping around it, so it's possible I threw the converter away. But can it take a standard international converter? So this is the cartridge that I put in it. So I just pulled it out. So I'm going to try, I brought down a selection of converters. This one is unbranded. I believe it just may have been yanked out of a Chinese pen. Don't even know what Chinese pen, but it does not go in. I can't get it to seat at all. So we'll set that one aside. I have a Lamy converter, like what you'd find in a Lamy Safari. It has the, well, no, sorry, this is not the Lamy Safari one. This would be like a Lamy Studio, or what's the other one that uses this? I want to say the Dialogue 3 maybe. Since we're trying to look Lamy 2000 like, and that was a fail, but I didn't really think that one would work. So my last one to try, I purchased, well, now you know where I purchased it, a Schmidt K5 converter. I don't remember why I purchased this. It's been sitting in my drawer for a long time. So apparently whatever I purchased it for, I never used it. And that seats very well. Very thrilled with that. So this is a standard international converter. So I would say it fits a standard international converter. So now you know. And now I better put this back in or I'm going to tip it over and make a mess. But I will be refilling this shortly with that converter. So I will keep them together. And finally, we come to my problem child. Beautiful problem child. That's been a problem child in so many ways. But Stipula Etruria, Prisma 88. With a T-flex nib. We're going to try some experiments with the T-flex. Now that said, that looks nice. And I'm not going to write the whole name because it's so long. The ink in it, again, is Diamine. Oops, forgot the dash. One of the things you might notice is the Diamine Autumn Oak takes on a very different character in this pen. It's beautiful in this pen. But what I'm going to do, off screen, I'm going to pull this nib out, and we're going to try a couple little experiments. So I brought some friends. I brought two Noodler's Conrads. You'll see why in a minute. I brought this guy, even though I don't think I'm going to do anything with it, but just in case I get the urge. This is the feed that actually originally came with the Stipula that wasn't writing. So switching the feed out really helped. Do not know why, but it helped, so whatever. We'll go with that. This Noodler's Conrad has the original Noodler's nib in it, which will be part of this experiment. This one, I put a re-entry nib in it. I brought this pen down because it is basically heat set for this shape nib. Not this specific nib, but for more of a shape like that. So I pull that out. Noodler's feed, which is ebonite. Clearly the Etruria feed is not ebonite because it's the same feed as on the cheap cheap Chinese pen and on the Delta Serena if you watched that episode. Okay, carefully setting the Stipula down so I don't spill ink everywhere. Set the feed down. I'm going to replace this rubber mat that you can't see right now, but anyway. So I have just put together the Stipula nib and a Noodler's feed. And I know some of you are going, no! But I did it. And it doesn't have to be forever. So attractive. I'm just holding it up to light, looking for light coming through the tines. Now, one thing I have done previously is flossed it with the brass shim. I feel like maybe I could floss it some more just to widen it some more, but anyway, this is an experiment. So, somewhere down here, I should have some Diamine Autumn Oak that I brought down. I don't need to fill the noodlers too much, but we'll fill it a little. So, Noodler's Conrad with a Diamine Autumn Oak in it. Now, I'd say that wrote well, if a bit messy. I don't know why I'm so messy all of a sudden. Time would tell whether it continues to keep up like that. But I think this problem nib is doing a great job there. You've watched me do this test for a few weeks in a row. Not perfect. I think this nib is slightly problematic for various reasons, but I thought that went really well there. So that makes me want to try a couple of things. I don't know if I will do all of them. One of the things I'm kind of curious to try is stick a noodler's feet into the stipula, but the weird shaped hole... Sorry, I don't mean to call it a weird-shaped hole. The custom-shaped hole for the feed makes me leery. Oops, wrong nib. Try that again. See, I'm talking to you instead of paying attention to what I'm doing. It looks like that feed I had was damaged because this one has a tip on it. Interesting. So we're going to put the noodler's nib into the stipula, which you may be sorry about. And I'm pretty sure I avoided every single warranty that you could ever possibly get from Stipula now. But, in fairness, I avoided every single warranty multiple times. And this nib, oh, actually, this nib has not even have aligned tines. That's gross. So, this is not going to be the best, but we'll see here. We'll give it a, maybe I'll prime it just a little bit. Whoops, and that was more than a little bit. Didn't mean to go quite that crazy. Oh well. Noodler, let's see, stipula. Noodler's nib. So this is suggesting one of two things to me. A big one it's kind of suggesting here, because this is writing about like how it was writing originally when I first got it. Because right now I'm sitting here waiting for the ink to come back down the nib. So I'm thinking the situation here is more complex than I was first thinking. Actually, I'll tell you what I'm thinking with this noodler's nib. I'm thinking it's not even entirely in contact with this feed anyway. I'll just be honest. I think it would be interesting to try the noodler's feed in it, but I think just because of shape, let's set this all down again. I am so inky right now. Gross. I'm trying to use a cloth and everything so I don't make a mess. But anyway, what I'm thinking is what I have here is a noodler's feet is a bit larger diameter and a bit different shape. So if I use the noodler's feed, we'll turn them the same way. If I were to try to use the noodler's feed, which I don't know if that's an experiment I'm willing to try, mainly because it's writing decently now with the Stipula nib and the delta feed, but I might have to shave down a bit on the noodler's feed just to make it fit. And I don't know if that's worth it. So that's an experiment I probably will not try. We'll just be honest. But that said, in a noodler's pen with a noodler's feed, this is doing a very nice job. Oh, there, now it's, oh, there it goes again. I am impressed by that. So do I take the expensive feed, put it in a noodler's pen, and put a re-entry nib on the Stipula? I don't know. I kind of want to keep this nib with its own pen. So if next week I start to wonder why I have orange blobs, let's see if any soaked through. Oh, not too bad. So I probably won't be wondering why I have orange blobs. But this is definitely the messiest I've left one of these pages ever in the history of this show. So I should just warn you, what I just did there may not be something you're comfortable with. I have had the comments from viewers that, you know, at the price you paid, which admittedly, you know, I bought it in was it pengallery.net from Malaysia, wasn't as high as it is from other retailers, but still, it should just work, and probably what I should have done from the beginning is send it back. But I didn't. Some of us have that nature where we want to fix things and make things work. Sometimes we break them and make them worse, and then we really kick ourselves and say, why didn't I send that back? But in this case, I think I've come to a relatively happy ending with the pen. But what I just did there is exactly how you violate a warranty. Or void a warranty. Because as soon as I start tinkering like that, warranty no longer applies, because now it's me that's wrecked it. So if you ever get the urge to do this, just keep that in mind. So that's just a warning to the wise. So, well, thank you for watching. And if videos like this interest you, where I talk about fountain pens, both new and old and at all price points, I would invite you to subscribe. If you would like to talk about glass nib pens, you saw one this week. They are a thing. I don't know if there's any modern refillable ones like that, but there are dip glass pens for sale right now. Perhaps you'd like to talk about one of the other pens, my converter, sorry, I kept saying cartridge, my converter experience with the Kaco Edge, or perhaps you'd like to address the Stipula once again. As empty as it is now, I feel certain that Stipula will not be in next week's Pens in Use, which is probably for the best, because that has really consumed me the last two or three weeks. So, and perhaps you'd like to yell at me for trying to fix it, or for not taking advantage of the warranty, or for not fixing it, or whatever you want to yell at me for. Feel free. So, thank you for watching. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.